Good morning, students. Today we are going to read the merits of the market system in the subject of economics O levels. So concentrate yourself. Here we are going to start. First thing that we are going to read in the lecture is reallocation of the resources. The use of the resources is changing all the time in response to changes in consumers' demand and cost of the production. So these are the two factors due to which the resources are going on changing from time to time. Number one is the changes in consumers' demand, and number two is the cost of the production. Resources move towards those products whose demand is rising and away from those which are becoming less popular. So being a businessman, this is quite obvious. I'll put my resources into the products whose demand is rising and will keep away my resources from those products which are becoming less popular. Figure 1 shows an increase in the demand for air travel and a decrease in the demand for the sea travel. So here you can see this is the air travel figure and this is the sea journeys figure. In A part, you can see the demand for the air travel is rising. So that's why the original demand curve is DD. So demand curve will shift towards right or outward. So D1 is the new demand curve. And because of this, because demand is rising, so there will be an upward pressure on the equilibrium price to reset as the new equilibrium price. So new equilibrium price will be P1, which will be higher than the previous equilibrium price because the demand is rising. And in this you can see the demand for the sea travel is decreasing. So the original demand curve is DD. So demand curve will shift towards left or inward. So D1 is the new demand curve. And because demand is decreasing, so there will be an downward pressure on the equilibrium price to reset as the new equilibrium price, which will be lower than the previous equilibrium price. The changes in demand cause prices to change. These alterations in price encourages firms to switch their resources from sea travel to air travel because air travel is in demand. The demand of the air travel is on the rising. So some businessmen will put their resources from sea travel to sea business to air business. Market forces also ration out products when their supply falls short of the demand. If, for instance, a disease attacks a potato crops, supply will decrease. Initially, this may result in the shortage with demand exceeding supply, as shown in figure 2a. This shortage, however, will drive up price until the market again clears with demand equaling supply, as shown in figure 2b. The market sorts out who will receive the products by raising the price. Those who are able to pay the higher price will be able to consume the products. So this is an example. Due to a disease attack, potato crops supply will be decreased. So here you can see because of the decrease, this is the initial response to a decrease in the supply. So supply curve, original supply curve is SS. So because of the disease, the crops will be like decrease. So supply in the market will be decreased. So supply curve will be moved towards left or inward. So new supply curve will be SS. Because now supply in the market is less, but the demand is the same. So it means there is a excess demand. So there will be an upward pressure on the equilibrium price to reset as the new equilibrium price. Definitely that will be higher than the previous equilibrium price. So look now, this P1 will be the new equilibrium price, which will be higher than the previous equilibrium price. And because the price is higher now, so the persons who are able and willing to purchase the potatoes at the new price will be given the potatoes. Here is a question. The price of the onions tripled in India in 2006. Traders blamed the hike in price on poor crop after unusually light monsoon rains. In the same year in India, the price of the tomatoes rose largely due to higher demand caused by an increase in urban income. So there are two cases. One is of onion and second is of tomato. The onion supply is on the decrease because of the low monsoon rains, and the demand of the potatoes is on the rise because of the increase in the urban's income. So a part is draw a diagram in each case to show why the price of the onions and the price of the tomatoes rose in India in 2006. So here are the figures you can see. Because onion supply is reduced because of the low monsoon reasons, so the original supply curve is SS, so the supply curve will move towards left or inward, so new supply curve will be S1 S1. So because the supply is reduced but the demand is still there, so it means there will be an upward pressure on the equilibrium price to reset as the new equilibrium price, that will be P1, which will be higher than the previous equilibrium price. So because of the higher price, the persons who are able and willing to purchase the onions will be given the commodity. And here is the figure of the tomatoes. Because of the rise in the income of the urban areas, so people are demanding more tomatoes, so it means there is increasing the demand, so demand curve will move towards right or outward. So this is the original demand curve, that is dt, so demand curve will move towards right, so d1 will be the new demand curve. Because there is an excess demand is there now, but supply is the same, so it means there is an excess demand, so it means there will be an upward pressure on the equilibrium price to reset as the new equilibrium price, so that will be higher than the previous equilibrium price. And because of this increasing price, the persons who are able and willing to purchase the tomatoes will be given the commodity. The second part is explain how in each case the market responded to changing circumstances. And here is the answer. The market for onion responded to the shortage caused by the poor crop by an increase in the price. The higher price rationed out the onions and restored the market to equilibrium. Whereas in the case of the tomatoes, the higher demand to the tomatoes raised the price and encouraged the producers to supply them in greater amounts. The next thing that we are going to read in the lecture is the importance of the competition and incentives. The advantages of a market system rely in large part on competitive pressures. One of the benefits claimed for a market system is a choice. So this is the biggest advantage of the market system, because the consumers have a lot of choice. If there is a large number of the firms producing a product, consumers will have a choice of producers. This should increase the prospect of consumers to decide what is made with producers competing with each other to meet their demand. In such a case, consumers are said to be sovereign because they are independent of choosing the supplier and what thing they require. So the producers will be compelled to produce those goods. Competition, whether actual or potential, should also result in low prices. It is quite obvious because the suppliers will try to attract the consumers, so they will try to keep their prices as low as possible. Actual competition arises when there are rival firms in the industry. Potential competition occurs when it is easy for firms to enter or leave the industry. If it is possible for consumers to switch from high price firms to low price firms, or for other firms to start producing the products, if prices and the profits are high, there will be pressure on the firms to keep their prices low in order to stay in the business. To do this, they will seek to keep their cost low. The more successful a firm in keeping the cost low and the more it targets the desires of the consumers, the more efficient it will be. It is said to be. So there are two things for to be efficient in the industry. Number one, to keep the cost as low as possible, and number two, to target the desires of the consumers. So if a firm is successful in targeting these two things, the firm will be efficient in the industry. The market system encourages efficiency by rewarding those entrepreneurs and workers who respond to market signals, and punishes those who do not. So who do not, they will be pushed out of the market, and the persons who actually targeting the desires of the consumers and keep their prices as low as possible, so will be more efficient. This is sometimes referred to as the market system providing both carrots. Carrot stands for a reward, and a stick stands for punishment to promote efficiency. So this is a technical term that is used. So market gives both carrot and sticks. In labor market, workers increase their chance of earning high wages by developing those skills which are in high demand, working hard, accepting more responsibility, and by being willing to change their nature and place of the work. Those who are not prepared or able to work, who lack the appropriate skills, and who are geographically or occupationally immobile may receive no or low incomes. Here is a question. In 2007, shortages of the lorry drivers in the US led some US companies to recruit truckers from the India. The companies attracted the drivers by offering them higher wages than they could earn at the home. In fact, the wages were 12 times those paid in the India. A part, what market incentive is touched on in the passage? So definitely higher wages is the incentive. Second part is explain using a diagram what is likely to have happened to the wages paid to lorry drivers in the India in 2007. So if in 2007 the US companies, if the US companies are attracting the truck drivers from India on a higher wages, so definitely the truck drivers will move from India to US. There will be a shortage in the India of the truck drivers then, and because of the shortage of the truck drivers, there will be an upward pressure on the wages, on the equilibrium wages of the truck drivers in the India to reset as the new equilibrium wage. That will be definitely higher than the previous wage. So this will be the effect. So look now. So this is the diagram. So wages of the lorry drivers and quantity of the lorry drivers in India. So definitely there will be a shortage of the supply. So supply curve will move inward or towards left, and because of this there will be a pressure on the equilibrium wages of the truck drivers in India to reset as the new equilibrium price that will be higher than the previous equilibrium wage. The immigration of the lorry drivers to the US would reduce the supply of the lorry drivers in India. This would be expected to raise the wages of the lorry drivers in India. Another question is here, what encourages firms to produce what consumers demand? And here are four options. The chance to earn a high profit, the chance to experience high unit cost of the production, the desire to attract new firms into the industry, and the desire to keep revenue as low as possible. So definitely A part will be the answer. What encourages firms to produce what consumers demand is the chance to earn a higher profit. Definitely C will not be the answer. Likewise, B will not be the answer. Likewise, D will not be the answer. So A part is the answer. So here is the answer. Firms are motivated by profit. To earn high profits, firms seek to keep costs low and revenues high. So this is the main target of any firm, to keep the cost as low as possible and revenues as high as possible. So in order to earn maximum profit, firms would not try to encourage rivals to enter the market, as their entry would make it more difficult for the existing firms to earn high profits. The next thing that we are going to read in the lecture is the allocative efficiency. And here is the definition of the allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency occurs when resources are allocated in a way that maximizes consumers' satisfaction. This means that firms produce the products that consumers demand in the right quantities. So these are the two things which are very important in this case, that the right product should be produced and in right quantity. Figure 3a shows allocative efficiency being achieved with supply matching consumers' demand. In contrast, 3a and 3b depict allocative inefficiency. In the case of the 3b, there are too few resources being devoted to the product, which result in a shortage. So here you can see this is the allocative efficiency achieved. But in this case, you can see these are the quantities which are being produced and provided in the market, which are actually shortage of the equilibrium quantity. So in this case, allocative inefficiency or underproduction is the case. In 3C, too many resources are allocated for producing the product and there is a surplus. So this is an other inefficiency. You can see this is the equilibrium quantity that is required, but surplus is provided in the market. So it means too many resources are being put in the production of the commodity. Market forces, by changing prices, should eliminate shortages and the surpluses and move markets towards the allocative efficiency. So this is the way to move towards the allocative efficiency if there is a shortage or the surplus of the product in the market. So in case of the shortage, prices will go up, and in case of the surpluses, prices will come down. Competition can play a key role in this process. This is because in a competitive market, a firm has both an incentive in the form of the profit and threat of punishment in the form of a risk of going out of the business to be allocatively efficient. If it is more responsive to the needs of the consumers as compared to its rivals, it should gain a larger market share. So the firms which are able to be more responsive to the needs of the consumers, they will be more successful as compared to their rivals and earn high profits, at least for a while. In contrast, if it does not produce commodities demanded by the consumers, it will lose sales to rivals and may be driven out of the market. Here is a question. The diagram below shows the current position in a market. How will market forces move the situation towards allocative efficiency? And this is the case. You can see surplus has been produced and put in the market. So here is the equilibrium quantity that is required, but there is surplus in the market. So because of the surplus in the market, prices will come down gradually. Okay, what things are given in the question? price, demand and supply. So prices will come down, because of which demand will on the rise, and finally supply will be reduced. So fall, rise, fall, and fall, fall, rise. So B is the case, because there is surplus in the market, prices will come down, and because of the prices come down, demand will be on the rise, and finally the supply will fall. Supply will fall. So B is the answer. So look now, supply is exceeding demand. The surplus will cause the price to fall. A lower price will result in a contraction in supply and an extension in the demand. Here is another question. In recent years, UK consumers have more health conscious. This has led to fall in demand for crisp. In 2006, one of the country's major crisp producer, Golden Wonder, went out of the business. A part, what effect is a fall in the demand likely to have on the price? So definitely the effect is the people are more health conscious now. So a fall in the demand would be likely to lower the price. B part is, what evidence is there in the passage of the UK crisp market working efficiently? So definitely market is working efficiently, because there is reduced demand of the crisp. So the businessman will pull out the resources from the crisp industry. So this is the evidence that the crisp industry is working well. The evidence is that resources moved out of the crisp industry in response to a decrease in the demand. The next thing that we are going to read is the productive efficiency. A firm is said to be productively efficient when it produces at the lowest possible cost per unit. So this is the definition of the productive efficiency, when the firms are able to produce at the lowest possible cost per unit. Productively efficiency is achieved. Again, in a competitive market, a firm has both an incentive and a threat of punishment which should drive it towards being productively efficient. If it can drive its cost down to the lowest possible level, it may capture more sales and gain more profits. If, however, its cost per unit are higher than its rivals, it will lose market share and possibly all of its sales. If a firm is productively efficient, it means that it is not wasting resources. If all producers in the country are productively efficient, the economy will be able to make full use of its resources and hence will be producing on its production possibility curve. In figure below, production point A is productively efficient. So if there is a productive efficient curve, if the point is lying on that curve, that will be the point which is actually productively efficient. With its given resources and technology, the economy is making as many products as possible. Point B is productively inefficient, as some resources are either not being used or not being put to good use. For instance, so these are the cases when resources are not productively used. So some workers may be unemployed, some workers may be lying idle, and some factory and office space may be empty. Also, there may be some workers involved in jobs to which they are not best suited, and the capabilities of some capital goods may not be fully exploited. So these are the cases due to which we can say the things are not productively used, productively efficient. So A is the point which is productively efficient, but B is the point which is productively inefficient, because maybe some of the resources are not being used properly. Here is a question. In a market system, what encourages firms to keep their cost low? A part is competition, B government regulations, C subsidies, and D taxation. So definitely A part is the answer, that is competition. Competition encourages firms to keep their costs low, because in this way they actually give tough time to their rivals and can earn maximum profit. So in a competitive market, firms have to keep costs down to retain their customers. And other question is here in the diagram below, which movement shows an increase in the productive efficiency? So from C to D is the movement, which shows the movement is increasing productive efficiency because C is less efficient than the D part. So C to D will be the answer. So C to D, like C option will be the answer. So look now, production points C and D are both inefficient, but C is less efficient than D. D is closer to the production possibility curve and hence closer to the productive efficiency. The movement from production point B to C and from A to D both represent a reduction in the productive efficiency. Point A and B are equally efficient. So C to D is the answer. The next thing that we are going to read in the lecture is the dynamic efficiency. And here comes the definition of the dynamic efficiency. Dynamic efficiency arises when resources are used efficiently over a period of the time. The profit incentives and the threat of going out of the business can encourage firms in a market system to spend money on research and development and innovative. So because the firms who spend money on research and development and they are being innovative are more competitive, they give much tough time to their rivals and actually attract the customers by producing more innovative and products which are actually according to the desire of the customers. Those firms that introduce new methods of the production and bring out new improved products increase their chance of gaining high profits. On the other hand, those that do not seek to keep up with new ideas to produce products and do not develop new products run the risk of the being driven out of the market. Here is a question. In 2004, Dyson, a UK company, introduced a miniature version of its vacuum cleaner in Japan, modified to take into account the smaller size of the Japanese homes. A year later, it overtook Hoover to become the market leader in vacuum cleaners in the US. In 2006, it announced record profits and its intentions to spend more on research and development and to launch new products. A part. What evidence is there in the passage that Dyson was responding to consumers' demand? Because the Dyson is responding well to the consumers' demand. That's why its products are in demand, and gradually and finally it has become the market leader and making a record profit. So this is the evidence which is given in the passage. B part. How may consumers benefit from the high profits earned by the Dyson? So definitely if the Dyson is gaining more profits, so the Dyson will spend more money on the research and development and will develop more innovative products and will produce more. Maybe the prices will come down and more efficient products will be there in the market. So this will be the advantage for the consumers. So answers are here. Dyson becoming market leader in vacuum cleaners in the US and achieving record profits. This is the answer of the A part. B part is consumers may benefit from the Dyson spending more on research and development and investment, as this would improve the quality and quantity of its existing products and also stimulate the introduction of the new products. The next thing that we are going to read in the lecture is the advantages of the market system. A market system has the potential to provide some significant benefits and the benefits which can grow over time. These include providing consumers with the power to determine what is produced. So this is the biggest advantage of the market system, that consumers have the power to determine what is produced, choice, low prices and high quality products. So these are the biggest advantage. In a market system, if a market system is working well, it will be automatically allocating resources according to the consumer's demand. By rewarding efficiency and punishing inefficiency, it may encourage the manufacture of the products that consumers want and are prepared to pay for, in the right quantities and at the lowest possible cost per unit. So this is the second advantage of the market system. Market forces can also promote the improvement of the methods of the production and a rise in the quality of the products made. So this is another advantage. It does this by putting competitive pressure on the entrepreneurs and workers and by providing them with incentives to respond to changes in the market conditions. For instance, if demand for the books is increasing while the demand for the cinema tickets is falling, profits and wages will be rising in the publishing industry because the demand of the publishing industry's products are on the rise. So workers and the businessmen will move towards the publishing industry while they will be falling in the film industry. These changes will encourage some firms to switch production and some workers to change their jobs. So this was the lecture, students. I hope so this will be much more easier and interesting for you to understand. So read this lecture again, understand it, learn it, and make your notes. Thank you so much.